especially when you live in like a city, not like a rural area, but like when you live in Calgary, you just expect that there's always going to be power, and that's the goal, is that there's always power.
Right.
That's not always necessarily the case if you don't operate properly, and integration of new products is great for the energy system, but it's also causing changes to the way that the system has to be run.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, or whenever you're watching this. My name is Robbie Butchart. I am the Chief Revenue Officer and one of the partners here at Launchcode. Today we are chatting, and we are excited to chat with two fine gentlemen that are modernizing the grid. So we're going to get into it. Enfinite's with us. We've got Jason and we've got Mike that are with us here today. Get ready. It's going to be a wild ride. We're going to talk about some disruption. All right, getting into it. Gentlemen, thank you. Really appreciate you fine gents being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and as always, we've got Alberio. He's the CEO, co-founder of many different things. One of them's Launchcode, here with us as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks. Yeah,
be good. Let's start. Let's start with this. Let's get people understanding a little bit who you guys are, a little about the Enfinite story, and what you're doing when we talk about grid modernization.
Sure. Yeah. Enfinite's been around since 2018. We started in the generation space, a lot of thermal stuff. We did our first project with Tesla in 2019, end of 2019, and we've been doing storage assets ever since. So been about 3.5 years now.
Right on. And what about your background, Jason?
Engineer.
Okay.
Mechanical engineer.
That's right. That's an engineer right there.
Mechanical engineer. You don't need to know more information.
Awesome. Okay, that's good. Mike, what about you, sir?
Same. I'm also a mechanical engineer, so have no business doing this, but get a fresh take on it. So it's been good. Jason and I together, like trying to look at it from a fresh take and not get stuck in the way it's been done the whole time. So
awesome.
Which has been super helpful when you're trying to do something that most people don't do.
Right on. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, tell us a little bit about what Enfinite does and what you guys are trying to accomplish.
Yeah. I think right now, a lot of our projects that deal with batteries, we're doing a lot of grid reliability stuff. So, renewable energy is kind of changing the way that the grid operates. There's a lot of technical reasons why certain generation type of assets really actually support the grid, and I think that as we start to as we begin to phase those out, there's a need for energy storage to come in to kind of support grid resiliency and grid reliability. Those kinds of words are what people use for I think what we do.
Right.
It's a really interesting space, and I think there's a lot of really good things that are happening with the energy transition, but there's also some complications that it causes, and Enfinite's coming in and really providing alternatives to classical generation mechanisms that are there for like the actual grid reliability piece. So
cool. And you guys started, you said geothermal, now you're into electricals.
Not geothermal, we had generation, so gas-powered engines, gas turbines, a little bit of waste heat to power stuff that we've had in the past, and we own and operate those assets still all over the province. But our energy storage has been really quite a big thing for us now, and we're doing that across Canada. So it's keeping us quite busy.
That's where the biggest opportunity is, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, that's how we feel. So yeah.
But let's talk about that. So you guys, really when you think about what you're doing I used the word disruptors a little earlier. I know it's a bit of an overused term these days, but when you look at it, the evolution to what our space is from an energy perspective is constantly evolving right now. We know what that evolution is entailing and everything associated to what's coming. Maybe walk us through, you guys are kind of the leading edge on that. You're the biggest storage facility in Canada, correct?
We have the most amount of energy storage operating online in Canada.
Okay.
The most amount of battery storage operating online in Canada.
Right.
There's a pumped hydro project that's, I don't know if it's operating yet in Ontario. So it's, important that we make that, differentiation. But when it comes to, battery storage, we are clearly the largest operator by quite a few megawatts.
Right on.
So,
yeah. No, it's awesome. So talking about that more, like I really want people to understand if they're not familiar with kind of the industry and the evolution. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's set a baseline on what that looks like as we're evolving forward here.
I think, battery storage, I think when people hear about it, they think that you're charging the batteries with, renewable energy and, discharging it later when there's no, renewable energy. That's one avenue.
Sure.
But that's not really what we do. We actually support the grid for times of need. So, when there are outages that occur, we're there with energy to, support, whether it's a grid problem, whether it's an outage, whether it's like, there's lots of things that can happen. The power systems, integrated, like all of the provinces and everything are integrated. Not all of the provinces, but the western provinces are all, integrated. And so when one of them has an issue, all of them sort of have an issue. And so things can cascade and things can ramp up pretty quickly, and that can cause, everybody kind of takes it for granted that like when you hit a switch there's always going to be power, especially when you live in like a city, not like a rural area, but like when you live in Calgary you just expect that there's always going to be power, and that's the goal, is that there's always power. That's not always necessarily the case if you don't operate properly, and integration of new products is great for the energy system, but it's also causing changes to the way that the system has to be run.
Interesting. Let's talk about the evolution to what that's looking like. How are you guys utilizing technology? What does innovation look like in that space? What do we see there? I don't know who to direct that question at.
I can take this one. So I think for us, we're looking at, right now we're on the cusp of a fundamental change in how the grid's going to operate. Because if we look at it today and how it's always been, it's one of the only resources we deliver to the public that you have to balance in real time. When a bunch of people go home tonight and flick on the air conditioning, they have to turn on generation around the province. There's no excess anywhere or a tank of it you can pull from, which when you think of it that way is crazy, that in the world we live in, that every time you go to flick stuff on, it's on a knife edge potentially of it being there or not. Now there's a lot of complicated systems that keep it running that way. But we're trying to change that fundamentally, where you put a storage resource on the grid that you can now pull from and store extra. It could be green energy, whatever it needs to be, so that it gives everybody that buffer of, you can, when it's there, it's always there now. It just makes everything safer.
So each one of these facilities that you guys create, you call them E-Reserve, right?
E-Reserve,
E-Reserve, and they can store up to, is it 20 megawatts or 40 megawatts or
40 megawatt hours.
So what does that mean in terms of, for those that don't understand?
This is a hard question. Yeah, people love this question. How many houses can it power for how many days? I actually have no idea, to be perfectly honest. It's pretty significant. I mean, like, to give you an idea of the Alberta load from any given time is like 8,000 megawatts to 11,000 megawatts. So
you can do like a small little town almost.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Easily, yeah, for a few hours.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you mentioned first project you did was with Tesla. Is that who you're using for the batteries?
Yeah, that's who we aren't aligned with them in any way other than that we think they have a great product, and it's been really successful rolling it out with them, and we're constantly looking for other opportunities with other companies, but at this point in time there hasn't been anybody that's really come to the table that's there's a lot of new technologies that are coming out that are kind of battery they're I don't know, parallel to battery, let's call them, but storage technologies, and so it'll be really interesting to see the innovation in that space. But for now, the kinds of services that we offer and what we're doing, I think Tesla has been a really great partner with us, and so all of our projects to date have been with them, and we've seen 2 or 3 different types of their products out in our projects. So yeah, cool.
And so all your projects are Alberta and BC, I believe, right?
Alberta for the batteries. Everything's in Alberta. Yeah, the BC facility's waste heat to power facility.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Where do you guys see the biggest opportunity in terms of the provinces across Canada?
I mean, based off size, obviously Ontario is going to be a big number. They have one of the biggest grids, but they also have a lot of pretty stable generation through nuclear, and they have a lot of hydro. So Alberta's really a good spot for it because we're going to have a lot of wind and solar and the less reliable forms of generation going forward. So, but it's needed everywhere. It's Ontario will always have a big number. In the end.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. And you find that, going across the different jurisdictions, is it the regulatory environment or your ability to create these things? Is it helpful to you guys? Is it cumbersome to you guys? Is there places that's easier to do it than other places?
I think it speaks to your earlier question. Like it's not necessarily where the biggest market is. Are the markets ready for bringing on energy storage? And Ontario's made a big move last week. They announced 750 megawatts of energy storage around there. I think that's a bit off, but around there. And they have another big, procurement coming out. So Ontario's answer is we'll buy energy storage, and they, see the value. So, Alberta, which is another huge market for energy storage, obviously that's where all of, our stuff is. That's more of a, open market. Like you don't need a contract to come here. You can build whatever you want to build. And if that makes money, then that's awesome. Right. Which is great. And that's why I think there's a lot of innovation coming out of the province when it comes to like we're the largest energy storage company here, and it's because of that open market that we were able to get ahead of that. So but in terms of the regulatory space, I mean, you can speak to this, but like it's they're having trouble keeping up with the overall technology and the change. I think the regulators want to make change. People understand that we need change, but it has to be done, fairly and openly, and not everybody aligns on everything, right? So that causes some challenges.
Yeah. Well, that was where my question was. Is like he asked the opportunity. Like this is it's a big change. Change is coming for a while. What are the challenges that you guys are facing, maybe as an organization, but maybe at a bit of a more macro level? What is the industry facing from challenges specific to where you guys come in and make a difference?
Yeah, I mean the biggest hurdle we're seeing on that is people understanding the assets, because now you have this dual threat asset that can be generation and a load at the same time.
So maybe, I'm just going to jump in on that. For people that might be watching that don't understand that. Yeah. I know you're an engineer, but let's maybe help people understand maybe what that means at a more consumable level.
Yeah, so historically what you have is you have either people that are consuming power or people that are creating or generating power. They can't really do both. There's some special cases, but for the most part.
Okay.
But now you have an asset that can, when it's charging, it's acting like a power consumer, like we are at our homes.
Right.
And then when you go to dispatch it later, you're now just like a natural gas turbine generating power. So you have all these things that they want to look at them separately that you now have to look at together. And if you use them properly, it's a big benefit to the grid. But every jurisdiction right now they're treated separately, and they have to treat them that way to this day. So when you're trying to get it permitted or go through any regulatory process, you're up against a lot of hurdles.
Interesting. And you guys have the freedom, I guess it's pretty interesting in that you're the consumer as well, so you can go out there and actually look at the market and figure out like what is your best strategy for energy consumption and where to get it from, right? Do you have full freedom to choose that, from renewables all the way to non-renewables? Or?
Yeah. I mean there's options all the time to buy as we grow as a company. Where we get how much power we actually consume is a big thing. We're just like any other business. We become a very large load, and then we're an actual generator on the other side, right? Which is cool. It just gives us a lot of overall flexibility. It really depends on how you're going to run that asset which is how often you're going to charge. If it's an everyday thing, then I think that concept of what you're talking about becomes increasingly more important. And so that's where, strategic partnerships come in with, renewable companies. We don't own any, renewable assets at this time. Those kinds of partnerships are what help ideas like what we're doing, I think, grow, because other companies understand that it's also like quite important. But Yeah, no, we are open to kind of pick where we get our power from. It's not necessarily there is no real mechanism right now for time of use monitoring of like this, electron is flowing into my facility, because it's like water going into a swimming pool and then being drawn out from a hose on the other side. So it's more of a financial transaction at that point, but or a commercial transaction, we'll call it. But it's something we can do, because it does help those renewable facilities get built if they do have contracts that they have on the other side for consumption, right? So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah, it is interesting.
And the asset itself, so you guys put it out there. Tell us a little bit about is it just basically just leave it there? Is it maintenance? Is there a certain year lifespan to this?
all of those things.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm like, you stumped 2 engineers, man. This is a good job.
No,
you know?
So that's where, that's where a lot of the innovation comes in with this technology now, is the balancing act of all those things.
Mm-hmm.
You have a fixed tank resource that you have to make sure it's full when you need it and optimize when you are filling it back up. You also have now, most of them are lithium-ion batteries, just like in our phones and our computers, and we know the more we use them, they don't last as long, right? So it's that constant balancing act, and that's where you can find the niches in the market. Understanding that, we do a lot of complex modeling to figure out when's a good time, when's a bad time, and how do we play that to optimize it. That's where all the innovation's coming in right now. The finding those little spots and how to optimize it's the real key right now.
All right, so let's change gears a bit, guys. We've talked a lot about, I think, the progression and what we're seeing and some of the challenges and the opportunities. There's the media, what people see out there, and some connotations not always painting a great light in your space, specific to the batteries that are sitting within homes, garages. Let's maybe talk about that negative preconception to this a little bit. What do you guys think of it? How are you addressing it? What do people really need to know about the safety perspective and measures that are in place?
The biggest thing you have to worry about is heat. Right? We all know when we charge our phones or our computers, it gets hot when you're charging it. So you can't have any type of cooling system in something you're going to put in your pocket. But on a big scale battery that's installed, they've got complex cooling systems that are constantly monitoring sensors on every cell module, and they're circulating coolant and maintaining them at a temperature. So
cool.
It's a thing that is not a worry now because you have proper monitoring systems for it. So, but it's hard when you don't know that and you're comparing it to what you see every day.
Yeah.
And then they go through testing that is very stringent now. If you want to build a battery or any one of the big OEMs, you have to go through a very stringent test through the UL to get all the certifications that it doesn't transfer even within side of a pack, and then if it were to, that it doesn't go to the pack next to it.
Oh, interesting.
So
And there has been fires.
Sure.
In batteries. We're not going to say there hasn't, but they don't spread. Like, they're contained. I mean, if the vendor knows what they're doing, they don't spread. I mean, it's
right.
It's all contained within the one pack, and so at that point, it's a commercial issue, right? It's you've lost one of your units and you have to get that back online, but the risk is very low.
Yeah. So that's exactly where I was just going to go. So would you say, like, the message to get out there to educate people is that there really isn't much of a risk? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
With proper operating and stuff.
Sure.
I mean, it goes without anything, right? If you're negligent about stuff, there's
of
obviously
course
higher risk.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but when you take it seriously and you put all the proper systems in place, it's one of the safest things you can install.
That's good to know.
Lots of technology in there, it sounds like. And so in the space in general, what are some of the most exciting innovations you guys are seeing and that you're excited for?
In the battery space, I mean, I think the speed that batteries can react at is pretty interesting. Like, that's something new. A lot of we were talking earlier about how energy, when there's an issue, things have to react to those issues, and the older style assets used to be on like 5-minute, 15-minute, 10-minute kinds of I don't know, we'll call them like a response time. What we're seeing now is like sub half a second response.
Wow.
Maybe you can talk more about that, but
Yeah, that's a thing we're seeing now. We've tested our assets where we can respond to picking up an event on the grid, whatever it ends up being, and dispatch an entire battery in less than 0.3 of a second.
Oh wow.
So
Wow.
and that's coming down to integrating a whole system. It's not just the battery, it's the control system, the metering, the monitoring, your background control system, all working together and cutting down it. We literally look at every step it has to do and time it and improve it each time.
it's kind of like this might align with you guys, but it's kind of like a data center, like the way that they operate and how each one of those little segments, communicates. That's almost what we're designing at the end of the day when we're doing these battery facilities, when it comes to the communications and the operations side. So there is a lot of innovation that goes into that, and I think that kind of gets taken for granted in that, like, you're just plugging in a battery. Like, that's, it is almost essentially that, but it isn't.
Is.
But it kind of is. Yeah,
I mean, now you
is.
can rest it on top.
Yeah, this is a really big cable.
Yeah, so really technical question here then. So if I plug in my phone, how long would it take to charge from 0 to 100%?
On your boy, that's a
We're
tough
gonna have
one.
to throttle it way back.
Yeah, it would explode, but that's fine. That's fine.
That's funny. Well, and did you guys? And I know we touched briefly on kind of what's happening out east in Atlantic Canada. I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit. Go down that path, kind of tying into the innovation. But
yeah, in terms of procurements and things like that they're doing.
And you mentioned Dalhousie and what you're seeing there too.
Oh yeah, so I was out there a few weeks back and went to the university there, and there's a professor there doing research on lithium-ion chemistries, and I think that's one of the big, one of the other, to your earlier question, one of the bigger beefs with lithium is that that it's from conflict countries, or that the minerals in there are from conflict countries, which is not the case always. I think it can be, like, there's obvious cases of this, but a lot of OEMs now with ESG mandates and things, like, there's a lot of really strict regulations around that kind of stuff. But on top of that is kind of this thought that lithium degrades over time. So as you go up and down, like, I know with your phone or your computer, like, you buy it and you can get 24 hours out of it, right? But then year 2 and you're like 12 hours max kind of thing, right? That happens with even our energy storage projects. They go down over time. The more they go up and down, the more they lose their ability to go up and down all the way, right?
Right.
Some of the chemistries that they're designing out there are going to get us over that hurdle. And when you think about cost is not like your CapEx cost. Cost is like your life cycle cost, right? And so we aren't going to be be disposing of these assets after 8 years, after 10 years, after 15 years. These are going to be 40, 50, 100-year life cycle projects that you're really using the resources that we're pulling from the earth to get to be able to build these things. And like, I'm not really saying something that I don't think everybody knows. Like, everything you build has resources, whether it's green or not. It's taking resources from the earth and creating something new.
Yeah.
I think all those innovations are really going to be what drives sort of this next phase, because I think that lithium is in a great spot. It's like, efficiency is better than any other storage thing that's out there these days. I mean, it's above 95%, kind of in that range, like higher than that.
Yeah.
There's not many things out there that can compete with that. Where I think it might fall short is its duration, its lives, right? So all these new innovations, I think, are really going to change how people perceive, especially the regulators, because they're more plugged into that concept, because they're obviously paying us to do this. And so if you're paying for an 8-year project versus a 50-year project, like, that's seems more palatable, right? It seems better. I think that as these innovations come out, there's going to be a big uptick in energy storage, and to be honest, there already is a huge uptick in energy storage. It's hard to get product because there's so many people around the world that are buying batteries and things like that. So
cool. Good transition into the net zero conversation that we wanted to bring up.
Yes.
That's, I mean, it's kind of the elephant in the room, so everybody knows that there's all kinds of global push. There's a global push, obviously, to achieve the net zero targets by specific dates. Obviously, range. But let's maybe kind of expand on that a little bit from your guys' perspective. How are you involved? Let's dig in.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can jump in.
Sure.
So from our point of view, I mean, we agree that we got to do something. What net zero ends up looking like, there's lots of difference in opinions, but we feel that energy storage is a key part of that. It's not the silver bullet that solves everything, obviously, because it doesn't generate any electricity, but it helps bring in these new forms of generation, such as wind and solar, that we're at the mercy of the elements. So if the sun's not shining, there's nothing. If the wind's not blowing, there's nothing. So if we don't have some way of storing that energy when it is there being made, it's really hard to make that an integral part of our supply mix. So it goes back to what I kind of mentioned earlier of like, right now it's that constant balancing act, and if we lose control over the one side of it, we can't do that anymore. So it's not the only answer, but forms of storing energy are integral to getting us to that point.
Yeah, Enfinite's been really like, we've been trying to, because I think a lot of companies, kind of advertise that like their thing is, that one, like the one trick pony for trying to fix, the world.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that's going to do that. This new energy mix is going to be this, balance of all of these items that kind of, stack up in like the perfect way to make exactly what we're trying to accomplish. The whole net zero by 2035 is a challenge for the people that operate the systems, the people that are now tasked with like, okay, here's, the federal government's rules and goals. And they are doing a great job at opening up, money. There was an ITC, a tax credit that was opened up, I'm losing track of time, like a month ago or something like that, maybe, I don't know. Yeah. But that program is for things like energy storage, for new, technologies to be able to innovate so we can try to hit that goal. But as renewables are coming online, there's problems that are associated because they aren't perfect. There are problems that they are creating, and I think that Enfinite's projects are really working to counter that. You can almost call what we do like, I don't know, renewable integration. Like we enable renewables to be integrated at a quicker pace, maybe. Like I think that kind of lines up with what we're up to. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
I like it.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned about the elements and some of these renewables being susceptible to the elements out there. For the battery storage, do you guys see any of that? Does it matter if it's minus 40 outside or there's electrical storm or anything like that?
Do either of you ski? Do you guys ski?
Yeah.
Do you ever take your phone with you skiing?
Yeah.
You ever tried to use it when it's cold outside?
That's not awesome.
No, it doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
So no, you do have to keep the batteries at a proper temperature to operate.
Okay.
It's one of the downfalls of operating them in Canada. But it's not that challenging. We have ours outdoors, like they're sitting outside. They're in enclosures that are like thermally managed, but they're always at one temperature, whether it's hot or cold. They're sort of up or down.
Right on.
There's some cool new technology coming out for keeping batteries at one temperature, using like new technologies. Just like that's actually one of the big areas of focus for innovation. So it'll be neat to see what comes out of that. But it is challenging to operate them in cold climates. I think one of the reasons why people were scared, I think at the time we were the furthest north battery in the world, I believe. Wow. I don't want to make that as a claim, but I think we were. I think we were told.
Sounds like you did.
I think we were told, or at least the furthest north one for Tesla, and that came with some issues. Like it wasn't easy to integrate that battery, and we worked along with them, and we've gotten through it, and I think we've kind of perfected sort of the overall design to make sure that it is able to operate in the cold, but it wasn't without its challenges to start, for sure.
Yeah.
But also to your point too of a lot of technology can be quite geographically constrained, right? Like hydropower is awesome, but you got to have water and it flowing and some elevation changes and things like that, right? And solar has its limitations of it needs to be relatively flat and in an area with good exposure. Wind in an area of wind. Batteries, we can pretty much put them wherever you want. So it's great for that flexibility of they're very energy dense. They don't take up a big footprint. We can put them pretty much wherever we want. Just need a little small flat spot.
Well, that's great. And you guys, being an innovator in the space, and you're putting these facilities out there quite a bit now. The largest, right, in the country and the specific area you guys are in. I hear you guys give back as well a little bit. You want to talk about some of the things you're doing in that space?
Yeah, we're part of a lot of groups, like I'll call them innovation groups or integration groups that are helping change the industry, that are really going for this 2035 piece, and then a couple others that we sponsor. Women in energy, so Women in Power. They're a great group in Calgary, and they really promote. There's a lot of great people that are involved in that organization, and we sponsor a lot of their events. CanRIA is another group in Canada that's really kind of pushing the evolution of what we do, but also wind and also solar and also other clean technologies that are really going to change the way that the industry operates. And then ESC, so Energy Storage Canada. I'm on the Energy Storage Canada board. I'm the only one from the West. It's a bit of an Eastern group, but it's a really great group of people that are really basic. Like CanRIA sort of pushes the renewable energy integration, wind, solar storage concepts. ESC really focuses into the storage space. So their main goals are the integration of obviously energy storage into every market across Canada, but also new technologies, and really trying to support the development through government grants and these kinds of things of new technologies that are coming out to help with some of the problems that we're seeing with the current tech. So yeah,
very cool.
Yeah,
this is awesome, you guys.
Yeah,
very insightful. I listened to Jay Shetty's podcast, and he's got an at way he ends him. I don't know if you guys watch him or not. It's the hot five, more or less. It's 5 questions he ends on. I'm not going to do that today.
Okay.
So the 2 engineers being like, "Holy crap, we didn't sign up for this."
5. Yeah,
That's great. So you told them you're going to do it, but then you're not.
No, it's good. I'm going to put a spin on it. Top 3 things you want to leave the people that are watching, listening with, whether it's the evolution to the organization itself, the industry itself, the misconceptions, to kind of double down on that. So I'm going to call it the Thrifty 3.
Thrifty 3.
Yeah, 3. You have 3 questions or 3 things you can leave us with, but it can't be long and drawn out for the next 45 minutes.
Is that why we're thrifty?
Yeah.
Because it's only
you got to
3.
be short with your
only
words.
3, yeah.
Short with your words. Well, they're engineers, so I'm not really confident. If it was me, I wouldn't work.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I like
it.
it.
Judgment.
Trying to think.
Even people on the side are laughing here.
I'd say the biggest thing is that it's going to be a very exciting space in the next couple of years. It's cool to be at the start of something where there's going to be massive changes in new technology, new ways of doing it, new companies coming out with new ways of looking at how to change the grid. It's something that hasn't happened in this industry for a very long time. So it's going to come with its challenges, and people aren't going to necessarily like a lot of it, but it's going to be a cool ride.
Awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, new technology shouldn't be scary. I think people have to accept that there's going to be change, and I think those changes don't need to be viewed with animosity. It isn't scary. There's a lot of this stuff around, say, the nuclear industry, that it's there's been some TV shows that haven't painted it with the greatest light, but those types of innovations, that's what's going to get us there.
Yeah.
Not necessarily doing it the way we've done it for years and years and years. And even in the oil and gas space, there's lots of new innovations that are really pushing sort of that net zero mandate. Everybody's come to the table and said all right, we agree that this is a problem, we agree that we have to do this, but it's going to happen at the pace that, I guess maybe one of the last ones could be patience. It's gonna happen at the pace that the industry needs it to happen at, because it can't just happen overnight.
Right.
It's I don't believe that people are ready for it to happen overnight, and I don't think like they aren't ready for what would happen if we made it happen overnight.
Sure.
I don't think.
Sure. Good answers. Almost sales-esque, you know. Before we wrap, though, guys, if there's nothing else, I want to make sure that everybody can get a hold of you guys. If there's questions, comments, thoughts to engage with you. So, what's the best way to connect with you both?
His personal cell phone number.
I love it.
Yeah, put that out there.
Let's put that on there.
Enfinite.com.
Enfinite.com.
We have contact information on there. ENFINITE.com.
I was just going to ask you to spell it. That's awesome.
Enfinite.
Enfinite. I like it. That's
.com.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. To my co-host, you were fantastic. Nice job, bud.
Oh, thanks, man. You did a better job, I think.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you. Anything else you would like to leave everybody with?
No, I think it's exciting. Honestly, I think, we've seen battery technology be kind of, for many, many years, stagnant. The old Duracell batteries and the stuff we're seeing now is so exciting.
Yeah.
To hear you talk about how, these things are not going to have to be replaced in 100, 120 years. I just remember my old Dell laptop. I'd unplug it from the wall and it'd go dead immediately. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's exciting. It's good to see that sort of technology innovation out there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
It's good. So we'll wrap.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, everybody, thank you. Super pumped that you guys hung out with us till the very end. Some really great information that was brought forward by everybody. Please remember, like, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff, share it, and tune in next time for another episode of Launchcast.